Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Bekah, this is Bekah's Bookshelves, and this video is going to be my June wrap up. At first I was thinking that I'd only read a couple of really great books in June, but then when I started thinking about it properly and going through my Goodreads list, I realised actually I had a really great month. So I read 19 books in total, and 12 of those were either physical or ebook, and 7 were audio. And there were 3 5-star books, 12 4-star books, and 4 3-star books, and 0 for the rest. So actually it was a good month. So to tell you about the 5-star books first, the first one that I read was called Guantanamo Voices by Sarah Merck, and this is it's a graphic novel anthology, and it basically is a collection of stories told from the viewpoints of various people who have been affected in some way by Guantanamo Bay prison. And they've got stories from former prisoners, current prisoners, lawyers who have worked with prisoners there, prison officers, the military, different people like that. And I absolutely loved this book. Like, it is non-fiction, obviously, so it's not like you kind of get caught up in a story or anything like that. I just thought it was an absolute genius way of getting people to understand at least some of the basic facts about Guantanamo Bay, because for definite, all I knew was it was a prison that the Americans used for, like really hard criminal type terrorist people. That is literally all I knew. And within the first couple of pages, I was just like, oh my god, that can't be real. Like, wow, look at that, and it was just, there was infographics giving you kind of basic data, and then there was obviously the stories as well. And yeah, I was like literally ringing my dad, saying, can you believe this, oh my god, and telling him all about it. And then, I'd be reading it in bed at night, and I'd be like nudging my husband awake going, listen to this, and telling him something. And I just thought that was just fantastic to make that kind of hard, like a heavy hitting topic so accessible to so many people. Because if it was an actual just a non-fiction book, I think I possibly wouldn't have read that, and I think a lot of other people may not have read it, just because of the sheer size that it could have been, the kind of very data heavy that it could have turned out to be, very political and legal. But by doing it as a graphic novel, I think they've made it so that lots of people can just grab it, read a kind of brief overview with the most important facts showing, and not be put off by it. The second 5-star arc that I read this month was a real shocker, if I'm being honest. Like, I really did not think it would be that well written. And the book is called The Old Man and the End of the World by William Hale Harrison. So basically, I am on a Facebook group for people who like to read zombie fiction, post-apocalyptic type stuff. And there's a guy who posted on there saying, I've just finished writing my first ever novel. It's zombie apocalypse. Is there anybody who would like to read it and review it for me? And I was just like, right. So then the author, started telling people more about what it's like. And basically he said, it's a bit like World War Z, in that it shows the story from various aspects across the globe, and how the apocalypse is kind of developing in different countries. So I was like, do you know what, give it a go. I love the movie. I love that kind of, you know, like global aspect of it. So yeah, so I read it, and from the first page, this book is written so well. It's not blood and guts and gore and zombie killing focused. It's very, very character driven. And what I liked was that a lot of the characters were linked through the story. So we meet the old man from The Old Man at the End of the World. We meet him first, and then later we kind of get to know this story from a doctor in India, and he turns out to be the old man's brother. And then their their children kind of come into it, and grandchildren, and then families and friends and people they know in different countries. What you quite often find with post-apocalyptic books is that they've kind of got like a very one-track mindset kind of thing, in that they're usually either very very military, action, weapons, guns, that kind of thing, or very medical, or very science. And what William has done a magnificent job of is getting just the perfect mix of all those aspects. So we do get, you know, a bit of action and some guns, and, you know, you've got an ex-military guy in there, but then, you know, the brother is a doctor, so you get some medical in there, and then there's the science aspect comes in with a different character. And I thought that was just fantastic, because I think that whichever type of aspect you like in your post-apocalyptic books, I think there's enough of each of them for everybody to be satisfied. And I just absolutely could not put this book down. I really, really loved it. And what I think was just brilliant about it is that it was so easy for me to picture the scenes in my head. I could very, very easily imagine this book being a movie. I could just see it as I'm reading it. I could just see it in my mind, the whole story kind of playing out visually. Now, it's not published yet. I think he said it's going to be published roughly August. He's not got a definite date yet. But that is honestly, I could not rave about this book enough. Like, I was proper fangirling with this author. I was like, seriously, you need to write more. Just get them done. Send them to me. I just need them. So yeah, I'm actually going to order this one as a physical book when it is published, so that I can keep it on my shelves, because it's one of those that it needs a special spot on my love shelf. And then the third book that was 5-star this month was the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. And I'd seen this book kind of, you know, shown on various YouTube, Instagram, things like that. And I'm not a massive vampire fan, you know. I did the Twilight kind of thing years back, House of Night, you know, all that kind of stuff. And but I just thought it sounds quite unique. So basically, you've got a group of women who are based in, you know, southern USA. They are in a town where it's very much kind of southern belles and southern manners, and, you know, there's certain ways of going about things. And it's set in a time when women were supposed to just be the good little housewife and stay at home, and the husbands went out to work and they made all the decisions, and, you know, the little wife obeyed her husband and things like that. And basically, this book club get together and they discover a love of reading true crime. So they start, like, you know, looking into cases and doing their own bits of research on the books that they're reading. And then a stranger moves into town, this man, and they start noticing, you know, some odd goings on. and the lead character, Patricia, she decides that she is going to investigate things further, and things just take like this really paranormal twist. And I loved every single word of this book, every single word, every single second. Like, it just got my heart reading it. It really did. Like, it was, incredible. And I know there's people out there that have been really disappointed by it, and I don't know what it is, just something really, really got to me with this book. I absolutely loved it. Didn't want it to end. So from that, I then immediately decided to order my best friend's exorcism and Horror Store by Grady Hendrix, which have been on my radar for quite some time anyway, since they first came out. So I just thought, do you know what, if this is what he's writing is like, give me the rest. So then we move on to the 4 stars, and for the 4-star books, the first one is Camgirl by Issa Mazai. I think I've pronounced that right. I'm sure she says in the book it's pronounced Issa. This is a memoir of a camgirl, basically, and yeah, there is quite a good chunk that details her kind of exploits as a camgirl, but there's also a lot of like emotional stuff and background history to why she's doing what she's doing, why she feels how she feels, and then, you know, later on how she kind of deals with what she's done and the effects it's had on her life, and then, you know, recovers from some trauma with regards to sexual abuse. And it was captivating, if I'm honest. I really, really enjoyed this. It definitely gets a little risque in places. There's some quite graphic descriptions of what she has been doing or what she's going to do. So if that's not your thing, then I would avoid this book. But if you don't mind that kind of, you know, content, then the actual kind of memoir type story behind it is really, really great. I actually spotted this on Amy Meyer's channel. She was talking about it and it sounded so good. I literally paused the video and went and ordered it straight away, and within a day of it arriving I'd started reading it, which is just not me, because normally I'll be desperate to read a book, I order it and it arrives, and then I put it on a shelf and forget about it for a while. So yeah, that was really great. Then I read another arc, Zombies of the World by Ross Payton. This was a very unique type of book. It was written more like an academic textbook rather than you know, a fiction type story, and what it did was it kind of it basically gave you some kind of like scientific research and evidence behind zombies being in the world, and the different cultures that have recognized zombies and believed in them. And then it kind of would detail one type of zombie, for example, you know, the like the mummy zombie, and then it would tell you all about things like whether it was classed as an endangered species, whether it was useful for medical reasons, what kind of areas or environments it lived in, how to kill it, things like that, what it eats, and it was just, obviously it's pure fiction. Like there's not even one dot of anything in there that you could say came from real life, I don't think. But the amount of detail and work and imagination that has gone into this book, I thought it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But it's not for everybody. I would say it's definitely for hardcore zombie fans, because there's not a story for you to get invested in. You have to be interested in the topic to then read the full book about it. And then I read The Recovery of Rose Gold by Stephanie Robel. This is the story of a young lady who, during her childhood, her mother was suffering from Munchausen's by proxy, and she created an illness within her daughter. So she would poison her daughter, and her daughter grew up thinking that she had all these, you know, terrible illnesses, and obviously she'd undergone many treatments and doctor's appointments and tests and everything, and then it comes out that the mother you know, has committed this crime and gets put in prison. So the story kind of follows from the day she's being released from prison and how their relationship and how their characters grow from there. And it was really, really good. It wasn't what I was expecting. I thought there would be more of a kind of flashback to childhood and the abuse, and that would be the kind of thing that the author would use to grab hold of readers, but it wasn't. It was definitely more about this kind of recovery from trauma, or you know, the kind of healing that they needed to go through afterwards. So I don't want to tell you too much, and I know this is one of those books that's like a BookTube darling. It's been on so many people's videos and Instagram and everything. But yeah, it's one of those you don't really want to go into it knowing too much, because it definitely would ruin the story for you. And then I read an arc called Measure of Days by Sophie Lazelle. This is, I think it's being put out there as a YA dystopian, but I would say it's suitable probably from about age 14. It's quite a young type of plot, if that makes sense, and you know, there's no kind of graphic stuff that you wouldn't want that age to read, so I would definitely say from about 14, 15. Basically it's kind of like a futuristic dystopian type look at society, where there's been this kind of global outbreak of something called flesh-eating disease, and people across the world are losing limbs, they're losing lives, etc. And what this book does a fantastic job of doing is showing the kind of socio-economic divide in society, and how that can, you know, greatly increase during times of difficulty, like a global pandemic, which, you know, like we're just seeing now. And so the you know, the more wealthy side of society, they can afford to buy treatments, they can afford to purchase new limbs, you know, false limbs. But obviously the poorer side of society are having to just, you know, struggle by. They can't afford the treatments, you know, they can only afford basic false limbs that aren't, you know, the best fit or the best working, that kind of thing. Now our main character is, she sort of reminds me of like this princess locked in a tower kind of thing. She's, you know, it's a fantastic chosen one trope book, this, and these kind of books get me every time. So basically the main character is a teenage girl. She is kept not locked away, but she's kind of kept away from the main part of society. She's got a couple of close friends, she's got no relatives whatsoever, and she actually is completely unaware that flesh-eating disease exists. But she's also unaware that she is an immune, and that there are certain factions that are warring against each other that would, you know, love to get their hands on her, because they could try and, you know, come up with a treatment, or a cure, or a preventative vaccination, just by studying her blood and her body. And one day she is kidnapped, and she's held by one of these factions, and they're studying her, and then the story kind of goes on to where she kind of joins their side in this fight against flesh-eating disease. So I'm trying to not tell you too much, but yeah, It's a super fast read. I really enjoyed it. I really like the characters. It does jump about quite a bit with the characters. I think there's about 7 different characters that we see viewpoints from and chapters from. And at first it's a little like, oh, who's that? Oh, but it's fine overall. Like, you kind of get it in your head toward, as you're going through. The only thing that I was a little confused of in the book was the passing of time. There was kind of no way for me to know whether it was days, weeks, months, years, and so that meant that some of the parts of the plot didn't fully make sense, because I'd think, well, but surely it was only the page before where this happened. How have we got to this point now? And actually it's probably because several months in the story have passed. But yeah, I did really enjoy that. I would recommend that to anyone who loves YA dystopian, or even to people who would give it to their children to read. And then I listened to Unpregnant by Jenny Hendricks. This is a YA contemporary. Basically, you've got a young girl who's at high school. She finds out that she's pregnant. Her boyfriend is a bit of an idiot. She doesn't want to she doesn't want to have a baby. She doesn't want to be pregnant. She's got all these plans for the future, going off to college, things like that. So she tries to enlist a friend's help to travel, I think it's 1,000 miles, to the nearest clinic that would kind of help her go through a termination of pregnancy without having her parents' permission or parents' signature or something. So it's kind of about the road trip they go on, the kind of relationship they develop, and the crazy antics that go on, and then obviously at the end how she feels about the termination, and then how she kind of goes on after that and heals. And it was really, I just thought it was fun. And I know it's not about a fun topic overall, but the kind of the relationships, the things that happen, there's a lot of like fun there. There's some laugh out loud moments. It felt very real. And then obviously there's the the heart-wrenching moments, and the feelings all come when she's having the termination. So yeah, I thought that was a great book, to be honest, and I did really enjoy listening to it. I'm not sure I would have taken the time to read it had I have actually had to sit down and read a book, but yeah, listening to it was great. And then I read an arc called Insane by Alyssa Roth. And this is a non-fiction book about the treatment of people with mental health problems in the US justice system. And it it was disgusting. It was shocking. It was hard-hitting, really, really hard-hitting. I worked as a mental health nurse for many years, and I am a massive, supporter and advocate of people with mental health problems. And to find out that these people are being so mistreated, it's sickening. It's actually some of the things that have happened, cases, and basically murder. There's no other word for it. It literally made me feel sick to my stomach, physically sick. I'm not going to tell you any of the cases because they can be very, very triggering. It's not a book that most people would read, and to be honest, I don't think it should be. I would say it's more aimed at professionals who work in mental health and professionals who work in the justice system. I just kind of read it out of interest because I read a lot of mental health non-fiction. Yeah, I can't really say much more other than it's horrifying and things need to change, seriously. It just can't go on what is happening. And then just to lighten the mood a little bit, I read an arc called Serial Killers, the World's Worst or Most Terrifying, something like that, by Nigel Blundell. Basically, it was like a collection of summaries of serial killers across the world. So it would, like, each chapter was a different serial killer, and you get like an overview of, you know, the time, the place, the kind of person, the victims, what the crimes, the outcomes of, you know, investigation or prosecution and things like that. I think it was just the right mix of the juicy details. I feel a bit sick saying that, but you know what I mean, like the bits that get true crime lovers hooked. It was a good mix of that, and also of not saying too much, so it wasn't a full story of each and every serial killer, and it couldn't be, because otherwise it'd be like, you know, that thick, the book. But it did a very good job of giving you it just enough to kind of pique your interest, and then you could then go away and do a bit more research yourself or find another book if there was like a specific serial killer or a specific incident you wanted to learn about. I think it would be great for people who are just getting started with the true crime genre. I think people who read a lot of stuff like that anyway will already have heard of most of those killers. I definitely heard of vast majority, but it was just nice to like have this kind of overview and a reminder of the things that I'd read previously. So again, that was another 4-star book. I read Stellas Story by Louise Allen. This was a kind of foster carer memoir. Nothing massively special about it. It doesn't stand out from other foster carer memoirs. But it also, you know, doesn't fall short of other foster care memoirs. It was just, if you like that kind of book, then you'd probably enjoy this one as well. I read a lot of Kathy Glass, and I did enjoy this one as well. The only thing I would say to people is it does involve sexual abuse of this young child. So if that's not your thing, if that's a trigger for you, then please avoid this book. But you know yourself. If you read that type of book, you know what you can and can't deal with. And then I finished the selection series, the last two. 4 stars again. They're just such good YA fluffy palette cleanser type books. I listened to both of those on audio, just like I'd listened to the whole rest of the series, and I did really enjoy them. Not as much, I don't think, as the first 3, but yeah, I still really enjoyed them. And Switch Lullaby by Mario Escobar. There's nothing special I can say about this one neither. I just really enjoyed it. It's basically just another Auschwitz type fictional story. If that's your thing, then this probably will be as well. But there's nothing that stands out about it. There's loads of them out there by now. So if you do enjoy reading those, then you'll probably enjoy reading this one. And then the 3 stars, 2 arcs that I read that were 3 stars were Panic by Chris Selwyn James. This is where there's been some kind of like global epidemic of, in fact it wasn't global, it was nationwide. It was based in the UK initially, and basically people would wake up from their sleep in this state of panic, and you know, they basically lost their minds, and they would then go and kill themselves very gruesomely, clawing out their eyeballs and all, you know, slitting their own throats and all that kind of weird stuff. So then people were trying to not sleep, because it never happened whilst people was awake. It was always they woke up from sleep in that state. And it started off just in London, and politicians and the, you know, royal family and all that, they were trying to cordon off that part of the country and move everybody up north, and then it just was spreading and spreading, and you know, there's like drug dealers getting involved who were selling basically amphetamines and whatever else just to keep people awake. And then obviously you've got the kind of like medical and social fallout from people not having sleep. And it was interesting. It was a very interesting kind of view on, you know, that kind of like horror / dystopian type thing. It just wasn't as enjoyable as I was hoping it would be. If you've ever read Nod by Adrian Barnes, it's very similar, and I rated that average as well, so yeah, maybe that's just not my thing. And then the last arc that I read this month was Handle with Kerr by Rachel Hearson. This is a medical type memoir from a health visitor, which I have never seen one from that aspect before, one from that kind of professional opinion before. And I was really hoping that it would give people a good understanding of what health visiting is about. It's not just being sat in somebody's house judging how they look after the baby. It's not just sat on a couch drinking cups of tea and chatting. These are actual experienced, you know, knowledgeable nurses, and some of the stuff that they have to deal with during their career is not very nice, to say the least. They end up in some horrendous situations, but also they have the other side of their job where they are a massive source of support, for families who are struggling with various things. And I was really hoping it would show that, and that more people could read this and understand the profession a bit more, and hopefully respect it a little bit more. Unfortunately, I don't think this book really did that. The author has put a lot of her own personal kind of story, background, childhood into the book. And at times I could see why. It was kind of giving you an idea of why she was making the decisions she was making, but then at times it wasn't really needed. The book starts off with like a big bang, like a really crazy, oh my god kind of situation the health visitor's in. And then you think it's going to carry on from there, and then it just doesn't. And I from memory, I think almost every single time she mentions a patient or a family that she was working with, it was drug or alcohol addicts who weren't sufficiently looking after their children. And obviously we all know that there's far more issues out there that they would deal with. So yeah, it just didn't quite, I don't know, it just didn't hit the mark for me. And then after I'd read it and done my review, I looked at other people's reviews, and quite a lot of people had said the same thing as well. So personally, it's not one that I would recommend. And that's a shame. I think that is a real shame. And the other two books that I read this month were The Horse by Stephanie Meyer, and Angels and Demons by Dan Brown, and both of them 3 stars. For me, 3 stars is average. It's a book where it was alright. I didn't particularly enjoy it. I didn't particularly hate it. It's not memorable. My life would not have been any different if I hadn't have ever read it. Yeah. The Horse has been on my TBR since April 2013. So I feel good getting it off there, but then I also feel a bit underwhelmed and a bit disappointed that, this book that I've been wanting to read all these years and finally got around to it, and it was a bit shit, really. Yeah, and Angels and Demons, just, dear God, that droned on and dragged on forever and a day. That book felt like it was 80 hours long. Yeah, it's not my thing. So that is my full monthly wrap up. If you enjoyed it, please click like, please subscribe for more videos from me, and I hope you've all had a fantastic June, and July's going great for you already, and I will see you all soon. Bye.